So this is from a friend in Poland. Maybe it's a strange question, but it appears in my mind. It appeared in my mind some time ago. Is a Vaishnava destined to suffer in this world? As Sri Prahlad Maharaj, Sri Dhruva Maharaj, Srila Haridas Thakur, the Pandavas, and Queen Kunti suffered. Reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, we see that the great servants of God in this world suffer all injustice, even from family members. Is this our destiny on the path of bhakti? Will people hate us more and more if we make progress on the path? It's wonderful. It's a very valid question. It's a very valid question because it's true. You know, there are so many examples, and it is something that has been noted. You know, also in regards to Mahaprabhu, you know, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he tells of that occasion when he was preaching, I believe in South India, and one gentleman asked him, you know, you are saying Lord Chaitanya Deva is the supreme deity, but we've heard about, you know, all this ecstasy that he went through and all these, you know, painful symptoms, you know, blood oozing from him, foam and fainting and trembling. How can this, you know, this doesn't sound like something joyful. You know, this is what you are proposing to be the supreme reality. And in regards to the examples that our friend mentioned, even Kunti Devi, she marks this. You know, in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, right? When Narada Muni is going from devotee to devotee, trying to identify who is the supreme devotee of the Lord, then he eventually comes to the Pandavas, right? Hanuman representing so Prahlad, this is all coming up, right? Because we are remembering the glories of Prahlad, right? Yeah, day before yesterday, Nishinga Chaturdashi. So Prahlad represents the acme of Shantaras, passive, perfect passive adherence and devotion, surrender to the Lord. And then Hanuman represents the epitome in Dasyara, servitorship. And then Hanuman points Narada to the Pandavas, because the Pandavas, they have a friendly relationship with the Lord. But when one of the things that comes up in Narada's discussion with the Pandavas, when he comes to celebrate them, oh, you are the supreme devotee, you know, is that Kunti, she says, you know, actually, if people hear about our story, it will turn them away. It will turn people away. Oh, this is what happens when you become a devotee of Krishna. No, this is what happens. And there's also this famous verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, Hadishyeta Dhanam Shanai, begins like this, saying that, you know, when Krishna is saying, if I really want to favor somebody, then I will take away all their wealth. That is also mentioned. So we have a strong case here for not becoming a devotee of Krishna. And even Mahaprabhu himself warns this in Chaitanya Bhagavat. No, Sri Chaitanya Dev, he tells this Sridhar, I believe, yeah, it's Kolavecha Sridhar. He makes his living off of banana tree products, banana leaves, and he makes plates and these kinds of things. And he's very poor, and he's a very devoted worshiper of Lord Krishna. And so at a certain point, Sri Chaitanya Dev tells him, why are you worshiping Krishna? What has he done for you? Better you worship, you know, Kali, you know, worship Durga. You know, she will supply you with everything you need in this world. Why are you wasting your time with Krishna? And there's also this verse in it's one of the few verses said to have come directly from Mahaprabhu himself. And how does it begin? Let me look it up right now. Yeah, Prapana Jivanamrita. It's in Prapana Jivanamrita also. Srila Sridhar Maharaj has included it. And that's it. Dadi Matana Ninadais Chakta Nija Prabhate Nibritapadam Agaram Balavinam Pravishta Mukha Kamile Ashu Nirvaki Deepan Kavalita Navanita Patumam Bala Krishna. It's like this. He's saying that it's describing this beautiful Bala Krishna and how he arises very early in the morning before the sun has risen. And he goes on his tiptoes very quietly, and with his beautiful lotus mouth, he blows out the candles. And then he's entering the storeroom where they store the butter, the ghee. And then he proceeds to steal that, to steal that butter, secretly. And Sri Chaitanya Dev concludes there, Patumam Bala Krishna. May that child Krishna be my protector. May that child, which is quite intriguing, a little puzzling. How is it that this little baby Krishna, who's a butter thief, is being appealed to for protection? So that tells you something. What does all of this tell you? And another story that comes to mind is of King Chitraketu. Does anyone know what that music is? I don't think it's coming from me.
From Jayadev.
Oh, and welcome, Jayadev. King Chitraketu, this also comes to mind. King Chitraketu. That there was that occasion when he was flying in his airplane, and he saw below him that Lord Shiva, he came across an assembly of Lord Shiva sitting with a group of sages, respectable. Okay, somehow I got muted. So King Chitraketu is in his airplane, and he comes across an assembly of Lord Shiva sitting with a group of sages. And Lord Shiva's sitting, in the seat of honor, but he has his wife Parvati in his lap. Lord Shiva, he's like an avadut. He behaves in unpredictable ways, and he's beyond the normal conventions of society. He's transcendental to that. But this King Chitraketu, he was quite surprised. He was not critical, but he was very surprised that Lord Shiva felt no shyness about this. And so he made some exclamation, "Oh, what an astonishing thing to see Lord Shiva sitting like this in this assembly." A little rude, although he didn't mean anything bad by it, but undeniably a little rude. It's a faux pas, as they say. And Lord Shiva was not disturbed, because actually King Chitraketu, he was a saintly king. He was devoted to Lord Vishnu. And so Lord Shiva was not disturbed. He didn't take any offense. But Parvati, she wasn't so tolerant, and she became very offended. And she cursed Chitraketu to take a hellish birth in his next life, which he did. He became Vitrasura, and there's a whole story there. But then, surprisingly, to Parvati, King Chitraketu, he humbly accepted that curse, and he went on his way. And so Parvati was very puzzled, and she turns to Lord Shiva, I just cursed him, and yet he responds in such a calm way. What is this? And then Lord Shiva, there's also this, there's a beautiful verse there, Narayana Pada Sarve, begins like that, saying that Lord Shiva explains to her that those who are devoted, fully surrendered to Lord Narayan, they don't care for it. They're not bothered by any disturbance in this world. And it doesn't matter to them whether they are in heaven, hell, or earth. It's all the same. They are fully absorbed in their mood of devotion, to the Lord. And we also see that in the case of Prahlad, that he's subjected to the most horrendous torture repeatedly, again and again and again, by his father, no less. And yet he remains fixed, calm, shanta. He's undisturbed, he's absorbed in a higher plane. We also see, final point, Kunti, Queen Kunti, right? What is her prayer? Like, what is her personal prayer? Okay, she's expressing some concern that others may be put off, others may be disturbed by seeing how we've had to live our life. But what is her personal feeling? Vipada Shantu, this prayer, famous prayer of hers, where she's saying, may these troubles, may these dangers come upon me again and again. Because when trouble comes, Krishna is very near. When trouble comes, Krishna comes to protect us. Krishna comes to our side. So I would rather have troubles come, and then we can be confident Krishna will also come. So let's put all these puzzle pieces together. What does this tell us? It tells us we need to get away from objective reality. And we need to appreciate the subjective plane. That the subjective plane overrides the objective plane. That's what we get from this. Where is reality located? Is it within the plane of physical circumstance, the objective world? Or is it within the plane of consciousness? Is there a plane that one can be situated in where the physical circumstances do not matter at all? Is there a plane of consciousness in which one can be situated so that they can transcend whatever the environment presents them? These are the questions that are raised by this. So and the answer is also there. Yes, it is so. It is so that we see these devotees, that although they have to face different troubles within the objective plane, subjectively they are very happy. They're like, bring it on. We want more. Bring us more. They're not troubled by anything. That is what we learn from that. And then, we also, that's kind of like the main point here. But then we can also, we can, there are different veins in which this discussion can continue. Some, related points. Another point here is that in order to come to this high place of devotion in the subjective plane, then, in order to get away from material consciousness, then we may need some trials and tribulations. That's another point. And in order to break our attachment to the mundane plane, in order to have an opportunity for progress, to have opportunities to grow. We cannot grow if we're always living in a very, if we're always in our comfort zone. We need challenge. We need to be stretched. So these difficulties, they present that opportunity. And another point is that one thing we have to always remember when we are hearing these pastimes, and they are pastimes, they are Leela, they are the Lord's Leela, they are not taking place according to the ordinary laws of nature as we are living. But these in the case of the great devotees, they are the eternal associates, they are the parshads of the Lord, and it is all part of the Lord's Leela. And so there may be different reasons why the Lord is painting this, canvas in a particular way. That's what he's doing. And we hear that sometimes the Lord puts his devotees in difficult situations in order to glorify them. It's like if we're hearing about the story of a hero, a hero needs some challenge, right? A hero needs some difficulty. A hero needs a stage, right? Hero needs a platform in which his heroism can be demonstrated, right? And so the Lord is actually glorifying his devotees, showing the world, demonstrating to the world, oh, look how glorious my devotees are in such a difficult situation, how they have overcome, how they have maintained their integrity, how they have maintained their devotional mood. It's not that, they're living in the perfect circumstances, or they're living in a cave and they're perfect, but no, they're out there on the field facing the real challenges of life, and their devotion remains intact. And they're setting an example to us also. How do you behave? How do you respond in such circumstances? What is the devotional response? They're setting that example. So that's another thing to remember. So we have to get away from our focus on the objective sphere. We need to realize more and more the significance of the subjective plane. And there's another thing I wanted to say too. Just now, it just slipped my mind. What was it? I can't remember. A few others have joined us also. Somya Sham and Vijayananda Prabhu from Ireland, and Ganga Leela, Devi Dasi, California. Chintamani, Devi Dasi is also here. Seva Rupa's also joined us from South Africa. And also Chaitanya Min has also joined us, also in California. So welcome to all of you. We have a beautiful group today. That. Chintamani has got her charge. What was the other thing I wanted to say? Does anyone else want to add any comments to any of that? The Chinmoy Prabhu.
I think what you mentioned is very important, is that seeing it as the mercy of the Lord. One of the 6 limbs of surrender. I always get confused, but embracing the Lord's guardianship. I believe so. So seeing these difficulties as mercy of the Lord, trying to help us detach from the material world. Yes.
Yeah, these circumstances, they give us the opportunity to practice these limbs of surrender. Confidence in the Lord's protection, embracing the Lord's guardianship. They are really opportunities. They're really opportunities. I can't remember what I wanted to say. Very frustrating. Anyone else have any comments or other topic for today?
And I was reading yesterday from Srimad Bhagavatam, the same verse, the prayer of Queen Kunti, the same beautiful verse. And Srila Prabhupada explains something.
Can you read that verse? I don't remember it.
They say, Vipada Santuta Saswat Tata Tatra Jagadguru Bhavato Darshanam Yatshyat Apunar Bhava Darshanam. I wish that all those calamities will happen again and again, so that we could see you again and again. For seeing you means that we will no longer see repeated birth and deaths. But I was reading this explanation of Srila Prabhupada, and he said, the spirit soul is transcendental to all material calamities. Therefore, the so-called calamities are called false. A man may see a tiger swallowing him in a dream, and he may cry for this calamity. Actually, there is no tiger and there is no suffering. It is simply a case of dreams. In the same way, all calamities of life are said to be dreams. So you have like another way to explain this, or actually at the end, is that we are dreaming that we have this kind of calamity, but doesn't exist. It's like a dream for the soul.
Yes, beautiful, beautiful. The soul is not affected, no, by any of these things. The soul is always transcendental to these things. So yeah, that's another important point to remember. It's only because of our identification with matter. We are identifying with the material plane. We think we are that. You know, our consciousness has come down to the conception of matter and material ego and all these things. And so that's why we experience suffering and pain. But once we identify with the soul, these things will not affect us. They will not affect us anymore. So yes, that's another important point.
It's kind of when we are not identified anymore with matter, then we will also have some intelligence to deal with these things in order to, because you know these obstacles, they come. They are sometimes there. You are in bodily confronts. You are in situations. It's heavy. It's not something light. So.
Well, the ego, right? The ego comes in, the ahankar comes in. Yes, when we are liberated from that ahankar, then we're operating on a different system. Sorry, were you going to say something else, Govindanandini?
No, just my question was just if some intelligence come to us in order to deal with this kind of things, a superior intelligence, like Gurudev said in a video once, like.
Well, I mean, that intelligence, that's a different thing. You know, I mean, we may still be in an embodied state, but we may have higher intelligence come to help us to deal properly with these situations, right? It's not that only when we're in the liberated state we can have some you know, spiritual intelligence. No, that may come to us by the grace of the Lord and Guru Vaishnava before. You know, it's kind of like you know, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he uses this nice expression in one place. He says shastric tolerance. Shastric tolerance. You know, like we sometimes we may be following because this is the guideline, but we're not really feeling that in our heart, right? What I mean is, like, there's a difference between practice and realization, right? So in our current stage, we may not be at the level of realization, of enlightenment, but we may be able to apply spiritual principles in the situation, even though our, you know, it's like if we're trying to be friendly to someone who we feel a lot of enmity for, who we have inimical feelings for, but we're trying to overcome that, right? So, you know, there's a difference, right, between, you know, our Gurudev in a fully realized platform engaging with someone, and us like trying, you know, practicing, struggling, you know. So there's a difference there. So that, you know, we may be able to respond in the, oh, Narottam saying he likes that. Yeah, I really appreciate hearing that, shastric tolerance. And he pointed, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, I believe he was speaking specifically in the context of a mission. You know, that in order for an organization, for a combined body of persons to move forward together, it's absolutely necessary. You know, it is indispensable that, you know, we practice that. It's, you know, because sometimes people argue in favor of, you know, just No, be direct about everything. Just say what you feel. No, that's not always helpful. It's kind of a very self-centered way to live. Like, you may feel good, you got it all off your chest. You know, you told everyone exactly what you think of them. You know, you may feel good, but you've just made everybody else feel miserable, and they're all going to hate you, and everyone's going to be very discouraged. You know? So what did you actually get out of that? You know, how did anybody get out of that, you know, in the long term consideration of things? So of course it depends on the person and circumstance. It depends on the relationship. But generally speaking, we have to keep these things under control. And remember that you know, what I'm seeing at my current level of consciousness, I won't see at a higher level of consciousness. What I'm seeing right now through the filters of my mind, my senses, my ego, this is all distorted vision. You know, so I shouldn't base everything on that. So let me try to regulate my behavior according to the vision of higher souls. You know, like in Srimad Bhagavatam, there are different, and Suya says, if we settle with continuous, I'm on the phone here, so I can't see very well the chat. Let me see. If we settle with continuous limited pleasure, we won't be motivated to go with unlimited. Yes, absolutely. But in Srimad Bhagavatam, there it's mentioned, there are these famous descriptions of the 3 levels of Vaishnavas. Okay, Chaitanya Minsal is commenting. Oh, thanks for everyone's comments. We all struggle with this, right? This is like the real talk. We're not flying in the sky. This is like on the ground, day to day, real spirituality, right? At our level, what we struggle with. But in Srimad Bhagavatam, it's mentioned, there are these descriptions of the behavior of 3 different levels of Vaishnavas. And, you know, there's the Kanishta, the neophyte, Madhyam, middle, and Uttam, the topmost. And, you know, we will consider that we are in the Kanishta category, but we don't settle for that. You know, what I mean to say is, like, when we want to make progress, we look at a model that's beyond ourselves, right? So the behavior of the Madhyam Adhikar Vaishnava is recommended. We can't jump to the Uttam, the highest, because that would be artificial, pretentious, imitationist, and won't get us anywhere. But the middle class Vaishnava is very helpful. The top class Vaishnava is described that they see Krishna everywhere. You know, they see perfection everywhere. You know, for us to try to pretend that, to be like that won't get us very far. It's just going to get silly. You know? But the middle class, the behavior of the middle class Vaishnava is a helpful model which we can strive towards. You know, that they are, you know, because the topmost Vaishnava, they only see the absolute. They only see the highest type of vision. They don't see anything bad. But the middle class Vaishnava, they make some distinction between good and bad. They can see the difference between good and bad, and they're behaving accordingly. So it's mentioned that, what is it? Prema, maitri, kripa, upekka, that they have prema, they have love for the Lord, they have friendship, they cultivate friendship with the other devotees, they are merciful to the ignorant, you know, to innocent persons who are simply ignorant. They are merciful to them. They will try to help them. And then for those who are those who are inimical to us and our cause, they are indifferent. They avoid them. They try to remain aloof from such person. So it's a very, very helpful model for us to follow. So, this is what progress is about, right? That we're here and where we want to go is over there. So we're striving towards we're stretching ourselves. We're trying to get out of our comfort zone. And we're trying to see things through the lens of somebody else, someone with higher vision. And this also reminds me of some type of expression Srila Maharaj quoted, saying that a king sees through his ears, because the king has spies who are traversing the kingdom, and they come back and make reports. And then that animals, they see through their nose, like especially dogs, they're known for their sense of smell, right? And the wise persons, the saintly persons, they see through scripture. They see through Shastra. So we hear this expression, Shastra Chakshu, the eye of scripture. Because what is the scripture? The scripture is the recording the sadhus, the saints. What is their version of reality? And then it says, then finally, and the ordinary people, they see through their eyes. This is a very basic way to live, like on the basis of what our immediate senses are telling us. We're making our eyes, our ears, our nose, they're all collecting information from the environment, and we're making some very basic calculation on the basis of that. That's a very basic way to live. That's a very low way to live. But a wise person, they're collecting input from other sources. We don't even need to go to a spiritual level, right? But any more intelligent person in this world, any successful person in this world, they're not just calculating on the basis of their own immediate experience, but they're collecting input from other sources. So that is what spiritual culture is about. And this is one of the things that's so exemplary in Bhagavad Gita, right? The beginning of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is distraught. He's in tears. And there are a number of verses where he's laying out all his doubts on the table. Krishna, I just don't think I can do this. What about this? What about that? And this person and that person and this consideration and this and that consideration. And I just don't think I can do this. Puts down his weapons. He's literally crying, tears streaming down his face. And then he says, however, Krishna, I submit to you. I defer to you. Shishashteham sadi tamam papanam. This is a really important line for our list. Chintamani's making a list. Important Bhagavad Gita. Shishashteham sadi tamam papanam. That I am your surrendered disciple. You please instruct me. So Arjuna's based on his particular limited knowledge and experience and intelligence, Arjuna is presenting his version of things. But then he's setting that aside and says, but Krishna, what do you think? I'm ready to do whatever you want. This is spiritual life. This is the beginning of spiritual life. I'm ready to follow with your higher vision, with your higher level of calculation. What do you think? What's your vision, your interpretation, your recommendation in this situation? And so then Bhagavad Gita begins from that point. And then after that, I love this line where it describes how, when Arjuna makes that request, then it mentions that Krishna's smiling. Then he goes to answer, and he kind of, teases Arjuna a little bit. Oh, you're speaking, words of wisdom, like you are a very wise person, but they are not actually appropriate for this situation. But I always think of that, like Arjuna's crying and Krishna's smiling. So when we are seeing things from material vision, we will be in a state of lamentation, necessarily so. Why? Because everything in this world is subject to degradation. Everything in this world is subject to mortality. The word, whereas in spiritual vision, you see, we are all eternal. And this whole material world is all coming and going. It's all based on nothing, actually. So why is there, we are eternal, joyful souls, conscious souls. What's the problem? Everything's good and Krishna's there as a bonus. It's like a major bonus that Krishna's there. Like, it's already pretty good news that we are eternal, conscious, blissful beings. That's already pretty good news. But on top of that, there's a loving Lord, a beautiful, loving Lord who cares for us and wants to play with us. Like, wow, this is like incredible. This is too good to be true, except it is true. So, then I wanted to mention also, tying in with this, the Sanskrit word for the lowest class in the Varnashrama system of India, right? The lowest class is the Shudra. And Shudras are those who are more fixed in physical bodily consciousness. The Brahmins, why are the Brahmins at the top in this line? Because they are living more in the subtle plane, the plane of spirit more. That's why they are the guides, they are the head. And the Shudras, they are more absorbed in physical bodily consciousness. What does the name Shudra mean? The root of that, it's coming from this word shocha, means lamentation. So Shudra means one who laments. Now, why? Because when we are in material consciousness, when we're in bodily consciousness, we necessarily must be in a state of lamentation. But Brahma Bhuta Prashanatmana Shochati Nakangshati Samasarveshu Bhuteshu Mad Bhaktim Labate Param. There's a famous verse in the 18th chapter of Gita. That one who has realized their identity as spirits, na shochati, na kangshati. They do not lament. It's the same word. They do not lament and they do not hanker after anything. Na kangshati. They don't desire anything because they see it as all matter. I am spirit, I am eternal, and all the things of this world or the situations, the circumstances of this world, it's all nothing. So what's the problem? Where's the issue? So we are trying, although we are in bodily consciousness, we are in material consciousness, we are trying to remember and apply the vision of the higher souls. We're trying to regulate our behavior according to higher principles. And the more we can do that, the more we will actually start to move towards that plane. And become more realized within that plane. It will start to become less practice and more, actual reality and feeling for us. Anyone else have any comments? Rama Sarup has also joined us. Welcome. I see Chaitanya. Chaitanya Daya or Chaitanya Min? Chaitanya Daya, okay. Chaitanya Daya.
Min is my last name.
Oh, okay, right. Min. That's like a Chinese name, right? Min.
Korean.
Oh, you're Korean.
Yeah.
Okay. Chaitanya Daya. That makes more sense. Mercy of. What's that? There's a very beautiful verse of Srup Damodar. Maybe you know it about the mercy of Halo Dunita Kedeya Vishadaya. Very beautiful verse about the Doya of Lord Chaitanya by Srup Damodar. Mm-hmm. Mhm. Oh, wait. Okay. Okay, very nice, very nice points to contemplate. Mhm. Mhm. Haridas Thakur. No, go. No, I was just thinking about the example of Haridas Thakur. No. How he was subjected to so much torture, but we're told he was not affected by that at all. He was beyond that. But please go ahead, Govinda Nandini.
Oh, but you would go through a nice thing. I think you can continue. This is very good to remind.
Well, Suyash has also put something here. How do we move from the logical? So how do we move from theory to realization? That is grace, We have to show, first we have to show that we are good students. And we have to invite the grace of our superiors, of our guardians. And this is what distinguishes this from, ordinary schools. Because in ordinary schools of thought or schools of practice, you put in a certain amount of effort and you can expect a certain result, right? That's how it works in the paths of karma and gyan. But in bhakti, it's different. It depends on the whim of our sweet Lord. When he feels like it. But obviously there is a model which is recommended, and that is to please. It depends on higher grace. We have to show that we are faithful students. We have to show that we are serious students and that we are trying. We're trying our best. And then our gurus, our teachers, they will see that. They will be moved by that. They will give their grace to us. And that is what will elevate us, their mercy, their grace. Srila Sridhar Maharaj makes this beautiful comment in one place. He says that if we do something, that he said, even an animal feels some gratitude if we do something for that animal. Even an animal feels some gratitude if we try to help it in some way. So what about our Lord? He said, you think he will not be touched? He will not be moved? He will see that we are trying, we are struggling, giving all our effort to come towards him. That will not touch him. He will not be moved to give his grace to us. No, of course he will. Of course he will. If it is really coming from a place of sincerity, no, he will help us. And our Gurudev liked that to give the example of Mother Jashoda, right? When she's trying to bind Krishna. Speaking of Krishna, the butter thief, as we were in the beginning, right? When she's going to punish him and she's trying to tie him up and the rope's always too short, 2 fingers too short. And she's struggling and struggling and sweating and her hair is coming undone. Her makeup is smearing. And finally, when Krishna sees that she's really, giving it her all, every breath in her body is focused on this service. This is her service, inconceivably. Then he allows her to tie him. So Vishwanath Chakravarti gives this explanation. 1 finger represents the effort, the endeavor of the devotee, of the practitioner, and the other side is Krishna's mercy. So we are depending on mercy. We are beggars of mercy. That's always our situation, beginning, middle, and end. No, we are beggars of mercy. We're always dependent on that higher, that virachayam yidandam dina bandhu dayamba gatir ihana bhavata gachid anyamasti nipatatu shatakutir nirvaram vanavamba tadapi yoda struyate chatakena. This is Srila Rupa Goswami's famous verse about the chatak bird, right? The chatak bird is always waiting for those drops of rain, pure rainwater to fall from the sky. may, when and if it will come. So that is how we are living, and we don't have anything else to do. It's not like, look, Krishna, I'm giving you a time frame here. If you don't get something back to me within the next 6 months, I'm out. I'm going to try something else. This is not a good program. Where's the efficiency? Where's the time efficiency factor here? Like, time equals money. Doesn't work like that. No, unconditional love, unconditional devotion. That's the program. We got to get with that. We don't have anywhere else to go. Even if you decide, Krishna, that you're never going to grace me, I still have nowhere else to go. I have nothing else to do. There's nothing better than this. We need to get into that kind of consciousness. And anybody who's ever experienced love in a profound way, I think they can understand that, right? Some persons experience that in this world, where you feel such a deep love for someone that even if they don't reciprocate in the way that you want or when you want, you can't go anywhere else because the attachment is so strong, right? So that's the kind of love that we're talking about here. If even people in this world experience that and express that, then what about the supreme entity? Is he not worth that? Is he not beautiful enough for that, and charming enough and loving enough to deserve that? He is. So we really have to, give that from our side and be ready, be ready for the journey, be ready for whatever comes. Be prepared. And remember that it's all mercy, as Chinmoy Prabhu is saying, it's all grace. It's all coming to help us on the path ultimately. We must see that. So our calculation of how we're doing, should not be in terms of any, material consideration. No. But how much are we making progress within? How much are the enemies, lust, anger, greed, all these things? How much are they leaving us? Selfishness. How much are these things? How much have I been able to practice humility, tolerance, and respect? That's the real field of practice. Not how perfect and comfortable our lives are. We have to get away from our fixation on the objective plane as a measure of significance. We have to get away from that. It's a deeper plane we're moving towards. Our gurus are trying to take us. On the other hand, it doesn't mean that if you don't suffer devastating disturbance in your life, you're not making progress. It's like, oh man, I've got lots of money, like Krishna must be really angry at me. Doesn't work like that necessarily. Really, the idea is that if these things are inhibiting our progress, then it will be the Lord's mercy to remove them. But if we're using everything for service, if these things are not obstacles in our devotional life, then we're okay. Then we're good. But if these things are obstructing us in some way, then the Lord's real mercy will be to take them away from us. That is the idea. There are also examples of wealthy Vaishnavas. There's nothing wrong with wealth. There's nothing wrong with happiness. These are all wonderful things. The only problem is when we lose perspective and everything is maladjusted, when everything's adjusted in the wrong way. That's only when there's an issue. But if we're seeing everything in connection with Krishna's interest, the Guru's interest, the Vaishnava's interest, then we're good, we're okay. And if we are surrendered to the Lord, then He will arrange for the circumstances most needed to adjust us. I feel like I've been talking to the mirror. These are all the things I needed to hear. Govinda Nandini, we have a few minutes left. You wanted to say something. I forgot.
I had a question about Bihad Bhagavatamritam. I never understand exactly. It's a Gopa Kumar trip. It's a Narada Muni trip.
There are different parts. There are different sections. The first part is Narada Muni, and it's describing Narada Muni, his search for the best devotee. And then the second part is describing Gopa Kumar. So there are two parts to it. Yeah, actually, the way it came about is because Parikshit Maharaj, right? He's about to die, and he just heard Srimad Bhagavatam, and like the 7 days have passed, or it's very close to the end, and then he's getting ready to leave his body, and then, as I recall, his mother suddenly appears, and she wants to know like what he just heard. You know, he just heard 7 days of Bhagavatam, and now she comes, and he hasn't got very long left, but she wants to hear what was this wonderful message. And so then Parikshit tells Brihad Bhagavatamrita, like as a condensed form of the message of Bhagavatam. And then there's some sage who's like nearby in the bushes, and he overhears this conversation, and then he records that, and he tells that, passes it on. That's what I remember. Maybe someone else can correct me. But that's what I remember. And yeah, there are these. It's published in 3 volumes because the second part is so long, as I recall. But it is these 2 parts. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's such a wonderful book, and Srila Sridhar Maharaj really emphasized that book because it gives a very clear perspective on the gradation of devotion and the foundation of pure devotion. Because if we just jump to Vrindavan, then we can become sahajas, we can become imitationists. And so it's very helpful for us to understand all the different stages that come before Vrindavan. Because apparently Vrindavans, it's like they live a simple forest life, and they take care of cows, and Krishna has lots of girlfriends, and right, it's like there's this deceptive simplicity about it. Okay, Chaitanya Daya, thanks for joining us. Dandavats. So if we just jump straight into Vrindavan, we'll become sahaja. Suyash Prabhu, Dandavats. Thanks for joining. So it's very helpful to get that perspective. Before Vrindavan, there's Prahlad Maharaj, there's Hanuman, these are all the different stages on which Vrindavan is built. These are all like part of the platform, the foundation of Vrindavan. So like Saraswati Thakur, he gave that instruction to Bharati Maharaj when he was going to lead the Braja Mandal Parikrama, Vrindavan, and he told him to preach Prahlad Charit, the teachings of Prahlad, the life of Prahlad. And he said they're all ripe in sahaja. They all want to jump to Radha Krishna Leela and the Rasa Leela and all these things, but they need to understand first what the foundation is composed of. First, appreciate Prahlad Maharaj. This is one reason why Prahlad is so important, because he's demonstrating what is the foundation of pure devotion. And then upon that foundation, so many finer things can be built. But without appreciating that foundation, we will become imitators. Understand what is behind all of that. The pretty Vrindavan scene. What's behind all of that? What type of self-sacrifice, is built? Is everything built upon in that plane? So, for these reasons and so many more, Brihad Bhagavatamrita is very, very helpful. It gives that perspective and that depth of appreciation. That Narad, he goes through all these different stages, meets with all these devotees, and they're all pointing him to somebody higher. And eventually comes to, he's pointed to Vrindavan, Braja Gopis. And then you understand all the qualities of these previous devotees, like these gopis, they have that and more. Then it gives us some better idea. Does that answer your question, Govinda Nandini?
Greatly. Thank you.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Well, does anyone else have anything they'd like to add, or should we close there for today?
Yeah, Krishna, Vishakha Devi, I wanted to ask, and in the Bhagavad Gita it stated, as one should be tolerant of the dualities of the material nature, like happiness, distress, all the different dualities, sadness, pain, whatever it is. So, wanted to ask, in terms of relating that to our foundational part of Bhakti, in the sense of how Prahlad Maharaj exemplified his life in devotional service, and how I'm just trying to think, like, in the when we're going through a lot of distress or a lot of happiness, whatever we're going through, like, unless, I guess, we have to practice in Krishna consciousness, but we don't really know how much pain or pleasure we'll go through, especially during the time of death. So, like, how do we really prepare for that? Like, in the sense that, we're doing our sadhana, chanting, reading, associating with devotees, serving. Then when the time of death may come, it's said to be, like, extremely painful at that time. So how do we, like, do we have any Shastric example as to, I guess, how do we remember Krishna at that specific time? I guess the best answer is to prepare, but, like, everyday practice, but this is, like, I can't even imagine, like, how it must be, I just want, I don't know if it's a question or not.
I'm thank you so much, because you reminded me of the point that I'd forgotten that I really wanted to make, which is that, the Lord will not give us anything without also giving us the capacity to face it. That was the other thing I was trying to remember at the beginning that I wanted to say. And in this regard, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he quoted a line. I just love John Milton. I quoted him the other day too. He has so many good quotes. The English writer, John Milton. Srila Sridhar Maharaj also quotes him in a few places. But Srila Sridhar Maharaj, in connection with this point, he quoted one line of John Milton, that at the end of his life, John Milton, he was starting to go blind. He was very devout, he was a Christian. But he still had some work which he hadn't completed. And so he was faced with this challenge, like, I need to complete this work, but I'm losing my sight. And then he came to this realization that, like, God gave me this work to do, and he will also give me the means by which I can carry it out. And so there's this really nice line. He says, doth God day labor give, light deny? Like, God will God give me a job that requires, the daylight, but then deny me light? Is he so cruel? So that's something that we need to have faith in, that, and I don't know if it's so helpful for us to think too far ahead like that, and calculate and plan, that I think that will probably put us in a state of anxiety, but Like, let's try and live in the now. Let's maximize our degree of surrender in the now. And that's what will actually prepare us the most. We the point is that we need to go deeper and deeper into a mood of surrender, right? And so this is the value of the human birth, that we have that opportunity. So let's use this precious time we have now in this moment. Let's utilize every moment that we have now. Death could actually come tomorrow. It could come in a few hours. Anything's possible. So we cannot think too much about that. One thing to remember is that some of the instructions in Bhagavad Gita, they're not for the exclusive bhaktas. They're more general instructions. So, like, for example, one of the things you're referring to is that famous verse, like, Krishna says, whatever one is thinking of at the time of death, they will attain to that. But our Gurudev mentioned, that instruction, it's not so much for the devotees. That's kind of more in the line of calculation. We are just trying to serve Krishna with love, and we're trusting he'll take care of everything. And whatever he wants to do with us, he can do with us. And there's also a nice line of Bhakti Sudhir Goswami, which often gets quoted, that we won't attain Krishna consciousness on the technicality, and we won't lose it on the technicality. Our guardians are not so miserly as that. So, who knows, okay, maybe in a general sense, it is true, but for those who are in the path of pure devotion, they're in a different category. The Lord is taking care of them. Yoga, they're in the side of Yoga Maya. There's a different set of rules. We're not under Yamaraj's jurisdiction. If we've truly taken shelter of Guru and Gauranga, we don't go to the general court. But again, we don't want to calculate like that. That's all in the plane of calculation. We're trying to cultivate a mood of faith, surrender, devotion, unconditional love. We're trying to think in that line. So we are trying to situate ourselves in the spirit of dedication and giving. And we're trusting, Krishna will do what Krishna will do, and ultimately it will be for my benefit. He's taking care of me. Guru Dev is taking care of me. Mahaprabhu is taking care of me. Nityananda Prabhu is taking care of me. We're trying to live with that kind of faith. We want to live in the faithful plane. Our Guru Dev, Srila Govinda Maharaj, would always say that. Shraddha Mayoyam Loka. We are living in the faithful plane. We are trying to live there. So we will have faith. We've approached Krishna in some measure. He will also take us in his shelter. He will take care of us. And we don't know what we will have to face. We may have to face very difficult, extreme circumstances that may come in our lives, but we will cross that bridge when it comes. And we will depend on Krishna when that comes. We will depend on Krishna before it comes. We will depend on Krishna today. No, we don't have any other, nothing will change actually. We're always trying to depend on Krishna. That is the devotional mood which we are trying to follow. But yeah, very, very nice question. I hope that is reassuring in some way. Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts?
Thanks to the devotees that made those beautiful questions today. They were really pertinent to the circumstance.
Does that help, Narottam Prabhu?
Yes, very much, very much. I was struggling in the sense of, not like continuing to read the Bhagavad Gita, but like making a choice between reading the Bhagavad Gita or the Bhagavatam. But now this helps me, see it. That helps me see it from the point of view of dedication. That if I continue, I'm still on the first canto in the Bhagavatam, but if I continue reading it from start, it'll be really useful. It's a certain level of devotional maturity, I guess you could say. In my words, I would have to put it of course there's the side of me. Yeah, it helps a lot. I don't know. I could talk for a lot, so I don't want to talk too much. It does help.
Bhagavad Gita is still very valuable for us. It's just, we have to remember Bhagavad Gita is describing different levels of different stages of development, and not all of them are in the line of Ananya Bhakti. That's all. But there's still, Bhagavad Gita is something we can read every day, but some things we just have to be conscious of. That's all. Okay, well, it's been a really wonderful meeting, very nourishing. And there's Rama Sarup. And also Chinmoy Prabhu. This is our new friend in Sedona, from Sedona, Rama Sarup Prabhu.
Trucker.
Dandavats, thank you so much. I was wanting to offer very quickly, if possible.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I might be cutting in and out, I'm not sure. Swami Shankarananda, the Swamiji of our ashram, he would say that our free will, when pressed, exists in our aligning our perception with God's will. And it's like an internal kind of process that rests on the fact of intuition, I guess, or intuitive grace, which for me, like wasn't really aware of. At ashram, I didn't go to ashram because I knew something. We got brought there because we were living in sort of a nightmare scenario. And every time I would speak and open my mouth, it was just this never-ending stream of reaffirming where I thought I was, and my entitlement and my preferences, like the little me. And it would shock me at what I discovered, Krishna really putting me through this crucible, this igniting of this fire of grace within me to and this is just me, but to kind of keep my mouth quiet and then to allow what would happen and learn to adapt, adjust, accommodate. And it never got easy. Everything that I wanted for myself and what I was working for was taken away and transformed, and kind of even what I would perceive at the time was me being toyed with and tested and failing all the time. And I just have to share, I guess maybe I have a hint of a question, but this fire I really got to embrace in a loving way, but I couldn't share it with anybody. It was oh my gosh, it takes everything from you and it melts you down and you're so small, and there's this love that wasn't what I thought love was, and it was kind of scary and stuff. But when I was quiet and I was chanting, oh my gosh. And so now I'm just curious, sort of, to ask a question. I love laughing, but I also sometimes find myself laughing in a delirious way, in a Kali Ma laughter of love, of a way to, allow the vessel to go through these moods of Rajas and Tamas and Sattva, because I don't have a hold or a purchase, but I do have a place to see it. And I wonder if that's okay sometimes, or most times what I witness, I can't put a finger on it, because I would be in hell if I decided to to speak or work on my behalf or you know, have an opinion. And so I wonder if like that's an okay place to be with the pain, which is this melting down of the ornamentation and the shape, you know, into this gold, because it really translates to me as this like constant love, but it's just like the tip of the iceberg. And you know, so that's my offering and my question to you, Jaima. Thank you.
Well, thanks for sharing, Ramaswarup. And I would love to address that. But maybe we can, because we're going over time and everyone's, I have another call scheduled actually. So maybe we can, we'll save this one for next week. Is that okay? Okay. But great. Thank you for sharing your heart. All right. Well, I think we'll close there for today. Thank you all so much for your wonderful company. And again, we're very happy Chinmoy Prabhu is with us. In case you hadn't noticed, Chinmoy Prabhu, we're very happy you're with us. And we hope you'll join when you can. And to Govinda Nandini for hosting so steadily. And look forward to next week. Okay. Jai Shila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Oh, someone else who's just, oh, this looks like Vishnu Priya and Tijuana just joined us. Oh, we're just finishing Vishnu Priya. We start an hour before this.
Dandavad, Vishakha.
Dandavad, Priya. Lovely to see you.
Me too.
Are you going to be going to London?
Yeah, in junio.
In June or July? Okay, wonderful. Great. So we'll see you there. Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah, I'm happy.
Okay, I'm going to close the meeting for today. Dandavat to all of you. Jai Shri Guru Dev, Jai Shri Vaishnava Vrinda, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Jai Gaur Premanande.